All right, so now we're going to make our Mornay, which is a bechamel with cheese inside. We're starting off with our 45 grams of butter that we're just going to melt down. To it, we're going to add 40 grams of flour to start our roux. Just getting this guy melted down before we add our butter. Not take too long. We don't really want to brown anything yet or uh, cook that butter. We're just trying to melt it, so just kind of keep it on low. All right, everything's basically melted. All right, we're adding in our 40 grams of butter. Now we're making a blonde roux, which means that we actually aren't trying to cook it too far, but we do want to cook the flour out. In order to do that, and the way you know that is by smelling it. And when it starts to smell nutty is when you know that it is ready to go. If you stop before then, what's going to happen is that your mac and cheese will actually have a little bit of a graininess and a flouriness to it, instead of just that nice cheesiness that everyone knows. It should take just a little bit. Just letting it cook on low. Just keep stirring, make sure it doesn't burn on the bottom. Watch your flame. This guy just runs hot, so I'm trying to keep it from burning. We're then going to add in 1.5 cups of milk and 3/4 cup of heavy cream. Again, just whisk it around, make sure you get those corners, make sure nothing really burns. I'm just smelling it occasionally, and I'm just trying to get that nice nutty smell, which I'm starting to get now. So I'm going to add first, and you're going to do this while stirring, my 1.5 cups of milk. And we're always adding cold liquid to hot roux. And then our 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. This just adds a lovely richness to all of this. We'll crank it up a little bit because we can bring this back up to a boil, and we're going to let this thicken. We actually want it to be relatively thick before we add our cheese. Make sure you get in those corners because it does like to stick. And the first part it's going to thicken is that bottom and those corner edges around the bottom of the pot. So I'm really trying to get into those and make sure everything kind of comes up together. So what we're doing is we're letting those starches gelatinize inside of the flour, which will start to thicken. Now we're going to be adding in 6 ounces of cheddar eventually. The cheddar is from block cheese. The reason we do not use pre-shredded is because pre-shredded typically has a bunch of additives and anti-caking agents that just make your Mornay not as gorgeous and lovely and smooth. That's also why we'll be adding some mustard, is to maintain the emulsion of the cheese and the bechamel so it doesn't break. and it will hold better. As you can see, it's starting to thicken up. That is what we are looking for. We want that nice, thick, basically gravy consistency. That is beautiful. That is what we were looking for. We're getting those bubbles. That is nice and hot. So we're going to turn off the heat. That is very, very crucial. You do not add the cheese with the heat on. Make sure that heat is off. Now we're going to stir in all of our cheese, 6 ounces. Give that a good stir. That residual heat should melt all of that cheese. Now, this is going to be a lot thicker than we're actually going to need for our final product. But the big deal with our final product is that we are actually going to add a little bit of heavy cream as we make our mac and cheese to order. If you can see that lovely, silky, smooth sauce, we're going to season it with a little bit of salt, a little bit of black pepper. We're going to add our 2 teaspoons of mustard, or sorry, our 1 teaspoon of mustard. And just mix all those guys in, then we'll give it a taste. But that is our lovely cheese sauce. You can use that to dunk pretzels in. We're also going to add just a touch of cayenne, and just a smidge. We don't need a lot. Give it a little bit of a kick. It kind of enhances that cheddar. We're using a very sharp cheddar. All right, that looks gorgeous. We're now going to taste it for seasoning. I'm going to add just a pinch more salt, but that is it. This is going to go great on our mac and cheese with our breadcrumbs. So I'm just going to let this cool. I'm going to package it up, and then we'll have it ready for when we do um, our actual mac and cheese.